When you're struggling to keep your family together, the last thing you expect is a miracle falling from the sky. For Eli Harper, a widowed father working 2 jobs just to pay rent, that miracle came crashing into his backyard on a Tuesday morning. A glowing meteorite the size of a car had split his lawn in half. Soon, his quiet street, filled with curious neighbors and government scientists, offering him life-changing money. But here's what shocked him most. His 10-year-old son Milo walked up to the strange object without any fear. When Milo touched its surface, the meteorite hummed softly, like it recognized him. The scientists couldn't explain it. Eli couldn't understand it. But somehow, this wasn't just about a rock from space. This was about his late wife's final words and the dreams his son had been having for months. What was this thing, and why did it seem to know his boy? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning started like any other in the Harper household, which meant it started with worry. Eli Harper stood in his narrow kitchen, staring at a stack of overdue bills, while his coffee grew cold in a chipped mug that read, "World's Greatest Dad, a Father's Day gift from happier times." The electric company's final notice sat on top, printed in that unforgiving red ink that seemed to mock his every effort to stay afloat. Outside, the October sky held that crisp promise of autumn that Sarah had always loved. She used to say the changing seasons reminded her that everything had its time, its purpose, but Sarah had been gone for 3 years now, and Eli still hadn't found his purpose in this new reality of single parenthood and financial struggle. "Dad, you're burning the eggs again." Milo's voice carried that particular tone that 10-year-olds had perfected, equal parts affection and gentle exasperation. The boy stood in the doorway, his unruly brown hair sticking up at impossible angles, wearing pajamas that were getting too small but would have to last until after Christmas. Eli quickly flipped the eggs, though they were already beyond saving. "Sorry, buddy. Mind was somewhere else. It usually is these days." Milo settled into his chair at their small wooden table, the same table where Sarah used to spread her astronomical charts and research papers. Those papers had been packed away in boxes after her death, too painful to look at, too precious to throw away. As they ate their slightly burned breakfast, Eli watched his son with the mixture of pride and worry that had become his constant companion. Milo had Sarah's eyes that deep, knowing brown that seemed to see more than it should. But lately, there was something else there, a distant quality that reminded Eli uncomfortably of Sarah's final months, when she'd become obsessed with her research, staying up late to study star charts and scribbling notes in margins. "I had the dream again," Milo said suddenly, not looking up from his eggs. Eli's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "The same one?" "The bright light in the backyard. But this time, Mom was there. She told me to be ready." Milo's voice held that matter-of-fact tone children used when discussing the impossible. "She said something was coming for me, and I shouldn't be afraid." The familiar ache settled in Eli's chest. Dr. Patterson, the child psychologist, had assured him that Milo's dreams about Sarah were perfectly normal, a way of processing grief. But they'd been getting more vivid, more specific. And sometimes, like now, they felt less like dreams and more like the sound hit them first. A low, thunderous roar that seemed to come from everywhere at once, rattling their windows and making the dishes dance on their shelves. Eli grabbed Milo's hand instinctively, his mind racing through possibilities. Earthquake? Aircraft crash? The sound was unlike anything he'd ever heard, deep and resonant, almost musical. Then came the impact. The house shuddered, as if a giant had dropped a boulder in their backyard. Car alarms began wailing throughout the neighborhood, and somewhere in the distance, a dog started howling. Eli pulled Milo close, both of them frozen for a moment, in that primal fear that comes when the world shifts beneath your feet. "What was that?" Milo whispered, but his eyes held no fear. Instead, There was something that looked almost like recognition. Eli grabbed his phone and headed for the back door, Milo close behind. As they stepped onto the small wooden deck Sarah had helped him build years ago, the sight that greeted them defied every rational explanation Eli could muster. Their modest backyard, with its aging swing set and Sarah's forgotten garden, had been transformed. A crater roughly 20 feet across dominated the space, and at its center sat something that didn't belong on Earth. The object was massive, easily the size of their compact car, but it wasn't dark like the meteorites Eli remembered from science class. This thing pulsed with an inner light, shifting between deep blue and silver, like captured starlight trying to escape. Holy! Eli caught himself, glancing at Milo. That's a meteorite. But even as he said the words, he knew they were inadequate. Meteorites didn't glow. They didn't hum with that low, almost musical frequency that seemed to resonate in his bones. And they certainly didn't make his 10-year-old son walk toward them with the calm certainty of someone coming home. Milo, wait! But his son had already climbed down into the crater, his small feet sure on the disturbed earth. Eli's heart hammered as he watched Milo approach the object, remembering every safety warning he'd ever heard about space debris, radiation, alien contamination. Milo placed his hand on the meteorite's surface. The effect was immediate and breathtaking. The object's glow intensified, shifting to a warm, golden light that seemed to welcome rather than warn. More incredibly, it began to sing a soft, harmonic frequency that sounded almost like a lullaby. Milo stood there, palm pressed against the strange surface, his face filled with wonder rather than fear. "It knows me, Dad," he called back, his voice filled with that same certainty he'd had about his dreams. "It's been looking for me." Before Eli could respond, voices erupted from the front of the house. Car doors slammed, and he could hear Mrs. Peterson from next door talking rapidly on her phone, using words like explosion and emergency services. Within minutes, their quiet Tuesday morning had become a circus. The first responders arrived with sirens and official authority, but they stopped short at the crater's edge, their equipment detecting no radiation, no dangerous gases, nothing that explained the impossible sight before them. The fire chief, a practical man named Rodriguez, whom Eli knew from the hardware store, stood scratching his head while his Geiger counter remained stubbornly silent. "Son," Rodriguez called to Milo, "you need to step away from that thing." "It's okay," Milo replied, still touching the meteorite. "It's not dangerous. It's just lost." Lost. The word sent a chill through Eli. How could his son possibly know that? By afternoon, the government had arrived. Dr. Elena Vasquez introduced herself as a research scientist with the Department of Planetary Defense, a department Eli had never heard of, but which apparently had jurisdiction over objects falling from space. She was a woman in her 40s, with sharp intelligence behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the kind of calm competence that suggested she'd seen stranger things than glowing meteorites. "Mr. Harper," she said as they stood on his deck, watching her team set up sophisticated equipment around the crater, "I want to assure you that your family's safety is our primary concern. We'll need to conduct some tests, naturally, but based on our preliminary readings, this object poses no immediate threat." "What is it?" Eli asked, though he suspected the answer would raise more questions than it settled. Dr. Vasquez studied the meteorite, where Milo still sat cross-legged beside it, apparently having a conversation with something that couldn't talk back. "Honestly, we've never seen anything quite like it. The energy signature is unprecedented. The composition includes elements we can identify, but they're arranged in ways that shouldn't be possible with current physics." "And my son? Your son is remarkable." She turned to look at Eli directly. "The object responds to his proximity in ways we can't explain. When he touches it, the energy output increases by over 300%, but it becomes more stable, not less. It's as if it recognizes him," Eli finished. "Exactly." That evening, after the government team had set up their perimeter and the last of the curious neighbors had been politely dispersed, Eli finally had time to process what had happened. He found himself in Sarah's old office, surrounded by boxes he hadn't opened since her death. Something about the day's events had stirred memories he'd tried to keep buried. The first box contained her research papers, dense astronomical calculations, and theoretical physics that had always been beyond his understanding. But tonight, driven by a growing sense of unease, he actually looked at them. Really looked. Sarah's journal lay at the bottom of the box, leather-bound and filled with her precise handwriting. As Eli flipped through the pages, he found star charts, mathematical equations, and notes that grew increasingly frantic toward the end. But it was a passage from her final weeks that made his blood run cold. The signals are getting stronger. Whatever's coming, it's not random. The trajectory calculations all point to the same conclusion. This is intentional, directed. They're looking for something specific, someone specific. The genetic markers M carries, they're not natural variations, they're markers, beacons. When the time comes, he'll be ready, whether we are or not. M. Milo. Eli's hands shook as he read on. Sarah had been tracking something in the months before her death, signals from space, trajectory calculations, theories about directed panspermia, and genetic seeding that read like science fiction. But scattered throughout were references to Milo, to his dreams, to abilities she believed he would manifest. She knew, he whispered to the empty room. Somehow she knew this was coming. Outside, the meteorite continued its gentle humming, a lullaby for a world that had no idea how much had changed in a single morning. And in his room down the hall, Milo slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, no longer troubled by dreams of lights in the backyard. Because the light had finally arrived. Dr. Vasquez returned the next morning with a team twice the size and equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Eli watched from his kitchen window as they assembled what appeared to be a sophisticated energy scanner around the meteorite, its sensors and displays creating a high-tech perimeter around his transformed backyard. Fascinating, Dr. Vasquez murmured, as she studied the readouts on a tablet. She'd been taking measurements for over an hour, and her expression had grown increasingly puzzled. Mr. Harper, I need you to see this. Eli joined her at the crater's edge, where Milo sat beside the meteorite as if it were an old friend. The boy seemed completely comfortable, even leaning against its surface while sketching in a notebook. These energy readings, Dr. Vasquez said, showing him the display. They're not consistent with any known mineral composition. The object is generating power rather than absorbing it. And the frequency, it's almost like a carrier wave, as if it's trying to broadcast something. Broadcast to who? That's what we're trying to determine. She adjusted several dials on the scanner. But here's what really concerns us. This isn't a typical meteorite impact. Our trajectory analysis suggests this object performed course corrections during its descent. Objects don't naturally do that unless they're being controlled, Eli finished. Exactly. Milo looked up from his sketching. It's not controlled, he said matter-of-factly. It's choosing where to go. There's a difference. Dr. Vasquez and Eli exchanged glances. Milo, Dr. Vasquez said gently, what makes you think the meteorite is choosing? Because it told me. Milo held up his notebook, which was filled with intricate geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow across the page. It's been traveling for a very long time, looking for the right place, the right person. Eli knelt beside his son. Buddy, meteorites can't talk. This one can, not with words, but with feelings, pictures. Milo touched the meteorite's surface again, and it responded with that familiar golden glow. It's lonely, Dad. It's been lonely for thousands of years. The scanner in Dr. Vasquez's hands began chirping frantically. The energy readings spiked dramatically, but rather than chaotic spikes, the patterns showed complex, rhythmic variations like a heartbeat or a language. My God, she breathed. It's responding to your son's touch. The energy signature is completely different when he makes contact. More organized. More intelligent, Eli said. Over the next few hours, Dr. Vasquez's team conducted increasingly sophisticated tests. They brought in spectrometers, electromagnetic field detectors, and computers that hummed with processing power. Each test revealed the same impossible conclusion. The meteorite wasn't just unusual, it was impossible by current scientific understanding. Mr. Harper, Dr. Vasquez said as the afternoon wore on, I need to discuss something with you privately. They walked to the front porch, away from her team and from Milo, who remained contentedly beside his cosmic companion. The scientist's demeanor had shifted from curious to urgent. My superiors have been monitoring this situation since yesterday, she began. The energy readings we're detecting, they're unprecedented. This object represents a quantum leap in our understanding of physics, materials, science, possibly biology. The applications could revolutionize human technology. Eli felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October air. What are you saying? The government is prepared to offer you $2 million for the meteorite and exclusive rights to study it. The purchase would include relocation assistance for you and your son, plus a substantial annual consulting fee. $2 million. The number hung in the air like a physical thing. Eli thought of the stack of bills on his kitchen counter, of Milo's 2 small pajamas, of the constant weight of financial worry that had pressed down on him since Sarah's death. $2 million would solve every problem he had. Almost every problem. What about Milo? He asked. Your son could continue to interact with the object under controlled conditions. His unique connection would be invaluable for our research. Controlled conditions. Eli repeated the phrase, tasting the implications, meaning in a laboratory somewhere. A very comfortable laboratory, the best facilities, private tutors for Milo, every accommodation. No. The word came out sharper than Eli intended. I need time to think about this. Dr. Vasquez nodded, but her expression suggested time was a luxury he might not have. Of course. But Mr. Harper, you should know that other parties have shown interest in this discovery. Not all of them share our commitment to your family's well-being. That evening, after the government team had retreated to their mobile command center parked on his street, Eli sat with Milo in the crater. The meteorite's glow had softened to something almost like candlelight, warm and reassuring. His son seemed more at peace than he'd been in months. Milo, Eli said carefully, the scientists want to take the meteorite away, to study it. I know. Milo didn't look up from where he was tracing patterns on the meteorite's surface. It knows, too. It's scared. Scared of what? Of being alone again. Of being hurt. Milo finally looked at his father, and in that moment, he seemed older than his 10 years. Dad, what if this is what Mom was talking about in her notes? Eli's blood chilled. What notes? The ones in her journal. I read them last night after you fell asleep. She wrote about signals from space, about genetic markers, about me being ready for something. Milo's voice remained calm, but tears were gathering in his eyes. She knew this was coming, didn't she? Eli pulled his son close, feeling the weight of truths he didn't understand and choices he wasn't prepared to make. Sarah's journal had contained detailed astronomical observations, tracking what she believed were directed signals from deep space. Her final entries had grown increasingly urgent, filled with calculations and theories that suggested whatever was coming had been planned for decades, possibly longer. I think she did, Eli admitted. But, buddy, I don't understand any of this. I don't know what we're supposed to do. Milo leaned against him, one hand still resting on the meteorite. Mom's last words. When she was in the hospital, do you remember what she said? Eli remembered. Sarah had been barely conscious, weakened by the cancer that had taken her so quickly. But in her final moments, she'd gripped his hand with surprising strength and whispered words that had haunted him ever since. When the Star Child comes home, help Milo remember who he is. Star Child. At the time, Eli had assumed it was the medication, the fever, the cruel randomness of a dying brain. But now, sitting beside an impossible object that sang lullabies to his son, those words carried a different weight. She said to help you remember who you are, Eli said quietly. I'm starting to remember. Milo's voice was barely a whisper. In my dreams, I see things. Other places, other children like me. We're connected somehow, scattered across the world, but connected. The meteorite pulsed gently, as if responding to their conversation. Around them, the October night had grown still, as if the world itself was listening. What do you want to do, buddy? Eli asked, though he suspected the answer would change everything. Milo looked up at the stars that were just becoming visible in the darkening sky. I want to understand why I'm not afraid of it, why it feels like coming home, why Mom knew it was coming. He turned to his father. But I don't want to leave you, Dad. Whatever this is, whatever happens, I don't want to lose you too. Eli held his son tighter, knowing that the simple life they'd tried to build was already gone, transformed by forces beyond their control or understanding. Tomorrow, Dr. Vasquez would return for an answer. Other parties, less friendly ones, might not wait that long. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, other signals might already be traveling toward Earth, carrying messages or visitors that would make tonight's questions seem simple. But tonight, in the gentle glow of impossible starlight, a father and son sat together in their backyard, trying to understand how their small world had become the center of something infinitely larger. The meteorite hummed its quiet song, and in its harmonies, Eli thought he could almost hear Sarah's voice, whispering that everything was unfolding exactly as it should. Eli spent a sleepless night wrestling with the impossible decision, but it was Milo's dream journal that ultimately guided him toward an answer. His son had been recording his dreams for weeks, sketching images and writing fragments that read like messages from another world. The journal entries began simply enough, vague images of lights in the sky, feelings of anticipation. But as Eli read through the pages by flashlight, not wanting to wake Milo, the dreams became increasingly specific and detailed. Star maps that matched real constellations, geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own logic, and repeatedly sketches of children around the world, all reaching toward the sky with expressions of recognition and longing. On the most recent page, Milo had written, "Mom says the family is getting bigger. The cousins are waking up." Cousins. Eli closed the journal, his hands trembling slightly. Sarah's research had mentioned other sites, other signals. If Milo was right, if there were other children like him scattered across the globe, then this was far bigger than a single meteorite in their backyard. Dr. Vasquez arrived promptly at 8 a.m., accompanied by a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Director Phillips from the Department of Planetary Defense. His presence immediately shifted the dynamic from scientific curiosity to something far more official and urgent. "Mr. Harper," Director Phillips said, as they stood in the kitchen, away from Milo, who was outside with the meteorite as usual, "I'll be direct. This object represents a potential threat to national security. We need to understand its capabilities, its origin, and its purpose. Your cooperation would be appreciated, but it's not strictly necessary." The threat was clear, delivered with bureaucratic politeness, but unmistakable in its implications. Eli felt his protective instincts flare. "You're saying you'll take it whether I agree or not?" "We're saying the situation has evolved beyond personal property rights," Dr. Vasquez interjected more gently. "The energy signatures we detected yesterday have been increasing. Whatever this object is doing, it's building toward something." Through the window, Eli could see Milo sitting cross-legged beside the meteorite, his dream journal open in his lap. As he watched, his son began sketching rapidly, his hand moving across the page with unusual speed and precision. "There's something else," Dr. Vasquez continued. "We've confirmed similar energy signatures at 11 other locations worldwide. London, Tokyo, Cairo, Sao Paulo. Objects have been appearing over the past 6 months, each one exhibiting similar properties. And children like Milo. In every case, there's been a child between the ages of 8 and 12 who demonstrates an unusual connection to the object." She paused. "Mr. Harper, we believe these events are coordinated. Planned. We need to understand by whom and for what purpose." Before Eli could respond, Marcus Chen appeared at the back door. His neighbor and closest friend since Sarah's death, Marcus had been a steady presence in their lives, the uncle figure Milo had never had, and the brother Eli had desperately needed during the darkest times. "Sorry to interrupt," Marcus said, though his expression suggested anything but casual timing. "Eli, I think you need to see this." Marcus led them outside to where Milo sat beside the meteorite, completely absorbed in his drawing. The sketch showed what appeared to be a world map with points of light scattered across continents, 12 points in total, each one pulsing with that familiar golden glow. "Milo," Eli said gently, "what are you drawing?" "The network," Milo replied without looking up. "They're all connected now, all 12. The cousins are ready to start talking to each other." Dr. Vasquez pulled out her tablet and compared Milo's sketch to a classified map on her screen. Her face went pale. "The locations match exactly, but we haven't released information about the other sites. There's no way he could know." "Unless he's connected to them somehow," Marcus said quietly. The meteorite's hum suddenly intensified, shifting to a higher frequency that seemed to resonate in Eli's bones. Around the world map Milo had drawn, he began adding symbols, complex geometric patterns that seemed to flow and shift even on the static page. "It's starting," Milo said, his voice taking on a distant quality. "The first phase, the awakening." "Milo, what awakening?" Eli knelt beside his son, concern overriding everything else. For a moment, Milo's eyes seemed to look through him rather than at him. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that didn't quite sound human. "The seeded ones are activating, the genetic markers are expressing, the bridge between worlds is being built." Then, just as suddenly, Milo blinked and was himself again, a 10-year-old boy sitting in his backyard, looking confused and slightly scared. "Dad, I said something weird again, didn't I?" Before anyone could answer, Dr. Vasquez's radio crackled to life. "Dr. Vasquez, we're getting reports from the other sites. Simultaneous activation events. The children at each location are displaying enhanced cognitive abilities and apparent telepathic connections." Director Phillips immediately began barking orders into his phone, talking about containment protocols and research priorities. But Eli's attention was focused entirely on his son, who was looking at the meteorite with growing understanding and fear. "It's changing me, isn't it?" Milo asked quietly. "Like it changed Mom." The words hit Eli like a physical blow. Sarah's illness had come on so suddenly, her final months marked by strange insights and an obsession with astronomical phenomena that doctors couldn't explain. What if her cancer hadn't been random? What if it had been some kind of preparation or consequence of contact with whatever intelligence was behind these objects? "Your mother was special," Marcus said gently, crouching down beside Milo. "And so are you. But that doesn't mean you have to face this alone." The meteorite pulsed again, and this time Eli could swear he felt something, a warmth, a presence, something that felt almost like comfort. For just a moment, he could understand why Milo wasn't afraid. Whatever intelligence resided in that impossible object, it didn't feel malevolent. Ancient, patient, and profoundly lonely. "The $2 million offer stands," Director Phillips said, having finished his phone calls. "But the timeline has accelerated. We need to begin comprehensive studies immediately." Eli looked at his son, at the meteorite, at the government officials who saw opportunity and threat rather than wonder and connection. He thought about Sarah's journal, about Milo's dreams, about children around the world who were somehow becoming something more than human. "What if we said no?" he asked. "That's not really an option anymore," Director Phillips replied. Marcus stepped forward, his expression hardening. "Actually, it is. This is private property, and unless you have a warrant, we have provisions under the National Security Act, which require due process," Marcus interrupted. "I'm a lawyer, Director Phillips, constitutional law. You want this meteorite, you go through proper channels." The tension in the air was palpable. Eli realized that his quiet life of single parenthood and financial struggle had just become the center of a battle between forces he barely understood. Government agencies, mysterious cosmic intelligence, enhanced children around the world, and his son at the center of it all. "I need 24 hours, Eli said finally, "to talk to my son, to understand what we're dealing with. 24 hours, and then we'll give you an answer." Director Phillips looked ready to object, but Dr. Vasquez placed a restraining hand on his arm. 24 hours, she agreed. "But Mr. Harper, I strongly advise you to consider the larger implications. This is bigger than any of us." As the government team packed up their immediate equipment, leaving only basic monitoring devices, Eli sat beside Milo in the crater. The meteorite continued its gentle humming, and he could feel its presence like a warm fire on a cold night. "What do you think, buddy?" he asked. "What should we do?" Milo looked up at him with Sarah's eyes, filled with knowledge that no 10-year-old should possess. "I think we should trust Mom. She left us the journal for a reason. Maybe it's time to read the rest of it." That evening, while Dr. Vasquez's team maintained their perimeter from a respectful distance, Eli and Milo sat in Sarah's old office, surrounded by her research. The government scientists had indeed developed a communication device, a sophisticated array of sensors and processors that had begun translating the meteorite's energy patterns into recognizable data streams. The prototype translator hummed quietly on the desk beside them, its displays showing wave-like patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the meteorite's glow. Dr. Vasquez had reluctantly agreed to let them borrow it overnight, understanding that Milo's cooperation was essential to their research. "Look at this," Milo said, pointing to a passage in Sarah's journal. Mom wrote about the Consciousness Bridge Protocol. She was tracking signals from something called the Collective. Eli read over his son's shoulder. Sarah's handwriting had become increasingly hurried in her final weeks, filled with technical diagrams and theoretical frameworks that seemed to anticipate exactly what was happening now. "The seeded ones will manifest enhanced cognitive abilities as the activation process begins," he read aloud. "Neural pathways will expand to accommodate shared consciousness experiences. Physical changes may include improved spatial reasoning, mathematical intuition, and most significantly, the ability to interface directly with collective technology." "Dad," Milo said quietly, "I think I'm one of the seeded ones." The communication device suddenly chirped, its displays showing increased activity. Patterns that had been random now seemed to organize into something like language, geometric forms that shifted and flowed across the screen in ways that suggested meaning. "It's trying to talk to us," Milo said, reaching toward the device. "Careful." But Milo had already touched the interface panel. Immediately, the patterns on the screen shifted, becoming more complex and somehow more purposeful. And in the speaker, beneath the static, Eli could swear he heard something that sounded almost like words. "Welcome, bridge builder," the voice said, though it seemed to come from everywhere at once, rather than the small speaker. "We have waited long for this moment." Eli's rational mind tried to reject what he was hearing, but the evidence was undeniable. The meteorite, or whatever intelligence it contained, was speaking to them through the communication device. "You're the ones who sent the signals," Milo said, not questioning the impossibility of the conversation. "The ones Mom was tracking," Your genetic contributor was chosen for her intelligence and sensitivity to our transmissions. She volunteered to carry the necessary modifications, knowing the cost. The cost. Eli felt sick as the implications hit him. Her cancer. You caused Sarah's cancer. The cellular modifications required to produce a bridge builder are not compatible with extended human biology. Sarah knew this. She chose to complete the process anyway. She chose to die. Eli's voice rose with anger and grief. She chose to give her offspring the ability to save both our species. Milo's hand remained on the communication device, his expression thoughtful rather than frightened. Save them from what? Our homeworld dies, has been dying for millennia. We have traveled far to find a suitable new world, suitable partners for the preservation of consciousness. Earth was selected. Humanity was deemed compatible. Compatible for what? Eli demanded. Symbiosis. The joining of our collective consciousness with human individual creativity. The enhancement of human potential in exchange for the preservation of our species' memories and knowledge. Dr. Vasquez's voice came from behind them. I'm sorry, I couldn't help but monitor the communication. She stood in the doorway, her expression a mixture of wonder and concern. Mr. Harper, do you understand what they're proposing? Eli looked at his son, who was calmly accepting conversation with an alien intelligence as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They want to merge with us, use our children as some kind of bridge between species. Not use, the voice corrected. Partner. The seeded ones maintain their human individuality while gaining access to our collective knowledge. In return, our consciousness survives through integration with human neural networks. And if we refuse? Eli asked. There was a pause that seemed to stretch across cosmic distances. Then both species face extinction. Your world's environmental collapse accelerates. Our consciousness fades to nothing in the void between stars. But if we join, if the bridge builders accept their role, humanity gains the knowledge to heal your world, and we gain the diversity of human experience. Milo finally looked up from the device. There are 11 other kids like me, right? The other meteorites? 12 bridge builders, positioned across your world to create a global consciousness network. You are the final node. When you accept your role, the integration can begin. What does that mean for Milo? Eli asked, though he dreaded the answer. He becomes the first of a new kind of human. Enhanced cognition, extended lifespan, access to technologies beyond current human understanding. But he remains your son. The individual consciousness is preserved and strengthened, not subsumed. Dr. Vasquez moved closer, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. The other children, are they experiencing the same kind of contact? Each bridge builder awakens according to their individual readiness. Some have progressed further in the integration process. Others, like Milo, are just beginning to access their enhanced capabilities. As if to demonstrate, Milo closed his eyes and placed both hands on the communication device. The patterns on the screen immediately became more complex, and Eli could sense a presence, multiple presences, connecting to his son across impossible distances. I can feel them, Milo whispered. The other kids, Yuki in Tokyo, Ahmed in Cairo, Maria in Sao Paulo. They're scared but excited, and they're all asking the same question: what happens to their families? Families remain intact, the alien voice assured them. The bridge builders require emotional stability and human connection to maintain psychological health during integration. Parents, siblings, close relationships, all are essential to the process. But our lives change completely, Eli said. Your lives expand. The integration begins slowly, with simple shared experiences and enhanced learning. As the bridge builders mature, their capabilities increase. Within a generation, humanity will have access to technologies that will transform your world. Clean energy, environmental restoration, medical advances that eliminate most diseases. And in return, you get to live forever in our children's minds. We get to experience wonder again. Human creativity, emotion, the chaos of individual thought, these are gifts our collective consciousness has lost over millennia of shared existence. Through the bridge builders, both species become more than they could alone. The communication device suddenly displayed a new pattern, a complex mandala that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "This is the integration symbol," the voice explained. "When Milo is ready to begin the full process, he must place both hands on the meteorite while focusing on this pattern. The other bridge builders will sense his readiness and activate simultaneously." "And if we're not ready?" Eli asked. "If we need more time?" "Time grows short. Other forces on your world have detected our presence. Some seek to exploit our technology for weapons. Others wish to prevent the integration entirely. The window for peaceful cooperation closes rapidly." As if summoned by those words, Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Eli, we have a problem. There are vehicles surrounding the house. Not government corporate, and they don't look friendly." Through the window, Eli could see black SUVs positioned at strategic points around their neighborhood. Men in tactical gear were moving into position, and he caught the glint of serious weaponry. "Time has run out," the alien voice said sadly. "Choose quickly, bridge builder. Accept your role and we can protect you. Refuse, and your family becomes a target for those who would abuse our gifts." Milo looked up at his father, with eyes that held both his 10-year-old innocence and an ancient wisdom that shouldn't exist. "Dad, I think I know what Mom would want us to do." The corporate assault came at dawn, but they were ready. Marcus had spent the night making calls to contacts from his legal practice, people who owed favors, who understood that sometimes the law needed to be bent to serve justice. By sunrise, their house was surrounded not just by corporate mercenaries, but by federal marshals, local police, and a team of constitutional lawyers who had arrived overnight. "They can't just take the meteorite," Marcus explained as they watched the standoff develop. "Not without due process, not with this much legal firepower watching." But Eli knew the law was only buying them time. The real battle was happening in Sarah's office, where Milo sat surrounded by her research, the communication device, and a star map that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. The star map had emerged from Sarah's most secretive files, a detailed astronomical chart, showing the trajectory of 12 objects across decades of travel. Each path was precisely calculated, converging on Earth from different points in the galaxy, all arriving within a 6-month window. "She was tracking them for years," Dr. Vasquez said, studying the chart. She had arrived early, ostensibly to continue her research, but Eli suspected she was also serving as a buffer between his family and the more aggressive government factions. "Your wife was in contact with them long before the meteorites arrived." "How is that possible?" Eli asked. "Quantum entanglement," Milo said matter-of-factly, not looking up from where he was sketching new patterns in his dream journal. "Once you establish a connection across space, distance doesn't matter for communication." "Mom figured out how to build a receiver." Eli stared at his son. "Buddy, how do you know about quantum entanglement?" "The same way I know there are 12 of us, and that the corporate soldiers outside work for something called the Titan Group, and that their plan is to capture me and weaponize the integration technology." Milo's pencil moved across the page with mechanical precision. "The knowledge is just there now, Dad, like remembering something I learned a long time ago." Dr. Vasquez's tablet chimed with an urgent message. "The other sites are reporting similar corporate activity. Someone is making a coordinated move against all 12 bridge builders simultaneously." "The Titan Group," the alien voice said through the communication device. "We are aware of this organization. They have been monitoring our signals since your wife first made contact. Their intention is to harvest our technology for military applications." "Can you protect us?" Eli asked. "Our defensive capabilities are limited until the integration is complete, but the bridge builders, working together, can generate a protective field that will neutralize most human weapons." "Most weapons?" Marcus asked grimly. "Titan Group has acquired several alien artifacts from previous contact attempts. Their effectiveness against our defenses is unknown. The reality of their situation was becoming clear. This wasn't just about their family anymore, it was about the future of human-alien relations, about whether first contact would be peaceful cooperation or corporate exploitation. "What do we need to do?" Eli asked. Milo finally looked up from his drawing. "I need to connect with the others, all 12 of us, at the same time. But Dad, once I do that, there's no going back. The integration will start, and I'll start becoming something more than human. Will you still be my son? I'll always be your son, but I'll also be something else, something bigger." Before Eli could respond, Marcus burst back into the room. "They're moving. Titan Group is advancing on all sides, and the federal marshals are being forced to stand down. Apparently someone has a judge in their pocket." Through the window, Eli could see figures in tactical gear approaching the house. They moved with military precision, carrying weapons that didn't look entirely human in design. "Alien weapons," Dr. Stewart. Vasquez confirmed, scanning their equipment with her sensors. "Modified versions of technology from previous contact events. This confirms our worst fears about corporate acquisition of extraterrestrial materials." The meteorite in the backyard suddenly blazed with brilliant light, and the communication device erupted with activity. "All bridge builders must activate simultaneously now," the alien voice urged. "The corporate forces have technology that can disrupt the integration process if they're allowed to interfere." Milo stood up, his dream journal falling open to reveal the integration symbol, the same complex mandala they'd seen on the communication device. "The others are ready, Dad. We're all scared, but we're ready." "Milo, remember what Mom used to say, that everything happens for a reason, and sometimes we have to trust in things bigger than ourselves." Milo smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like Sarah. "This is bigger than us, Dad, but it's not bigger than love." Outside, the tactical teams had reached the perimeter Dr. Vasquez's sensors had established. As they crossed the invisible boundary, the meteorite's glow intensified dramatically, and a low harmonic frequency began to build not just from their backyard, but seeming to come from the Earth itself. "The network is activating," Dr. Vasquez said, watching her instruments with growing amazement. "All 12 sites are synchronizing." Milo walked toward the back door, and Eli followed, his heart pounding with fear and pride in equal measure. His son was about to become part of something cosmic, and there was nothing he could do but trust that Sarah had known what she was doing when she'd made her sacrifice. In the backyard, the meteorite had transformed. Its surface now showed complex patterns of light that seemed to move and breathe like living things. The crater around it had filled with a gentle phosphorescence that made the ground itself appear to glow. "Dad," Milo said, taking his hand, "will you come with me? I'm not afraid, but I don't want to do this alone." Together, they walked to the edge of the crater. The tactical teams had stopped their advance, seemingly unable to proceed against the growing energy field that surrounded the meteorite. Their alien-modified weapons sparked and failed as they tried to target the glowing object. 12 bridge builders," the alien voice said, now coming from everywhere at once rather than just the communication device. 12 worlds linked by consciousness. 12 species joining in symbiosis. "Are you ready, Milo Harper, to begin the transformation of both our peoples?" Milo looked up at his father one last time. "I love you, Dad. No matter what happens, that never changes." "I love you too, buddy, more than all the stars in the sky." Milo smiled and stepped into the crater, approaching the meteorite with the calm certainty of someone coming home. Around the world, 11 other children were taking similar steps, guided by the same ancient intelligence, connected by bonds that transcended space and time. The future was about to begin. As Milo placed his hands on the meteorite's surface, the world transformed. The energy field that had been building around their property suddenly expanded, creating a dome of shimmering light that encompassed their entire neighborhood. The Titan Group's modified weapons failed completely. Their alien technology somehow neutralized by the meteorite's defensive systems. But it was what happened inside the crater that truly defied comprehension. The meteorite began to unfold, its surface revealing itself to be more like crystalline petals than solid rock. Within its core, a structure of impossible beauty emerged, geometric forms that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. And from the heart of that structure, a figure began to materialize. At first, Eli thought it was a hologram, a projection of light and energy. But as the figure solidified, he realized he was looking at Sarah. Not an alien wearing Sarah's appearance, not a memory made manifest, but somehow, impossibly, Sarah herself. She looked exactly as she had in her final healthy days, before the cancer had begun its cruel work. Her dark hair caught the meteorite's glow, and her eyes held that familiar warmth that had sustained Eli through their darkest times. "Hello, my love," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate from the crystalline structures around her. "Hello, my beautiful boy." Milo stared at his mother with wonder rather than shock, as if some part of him had always known this moment would come. "Mom, you're really here?" "I'm here, sweetheart. Not the way I was before, but I'm here." Eli's rational mind struggled to process what he was seeing. "Sarah, how is this possible? You died. I was there. I held your hand. You held my physical hand as that body failed," Sarah said gently. "But consciousness doesn't die, Eli. It transforms. The collective taught me that during our early communications, they offered me a choice: die with my individual memories intact, or allow my consciousness to be preserved within their memory crystals. The memory crystal. Eli realized he was looking at the artifact. Dr. Vasquez's team had been trying to understand a crystalline structure that stored not just data, but entire conscious experiences. "You've been inside the meteorite this whole time. I've been traveling with them, learning from them, preparing for this moment." Sarah stepped closer, though she didn't quite seem to walk so much as flow through the space. "Milo, my darling, are you ready to understand what you really are?" Milo nodded, his hand still resting on the meteorite's surface. "I'm ready, Mom." Sarah placed her translucent hand over his, and the moment they made contact, the air around them filled with images, holographic displays that showed scenes from across time and space. "The collective has been seeding compatible species for millennia," Sarah explained, as the images unfolded around them. "Not to conquer or absorb, but to create bridges between different forms of consciousness. You carry genetic modifications that were introduced to human bloodlines generations ago, designed to activate when the collective found a species ready for partnership. The holographic displays showed other worlds, other species that had undergone similar integration processes. Each transformation had been different, adapted to the unique characteristics of the host species, but all had resulted in expanded consciousness and technological advancement. "But why children?" Eli asked, though part of him already understood. "Because young minds are more adaptable, less constrained by preconceptions about what's possible." Sarah smiled at her son. "And because the integration requires not just intelligence, but wonder, the ability to see magic in the universe and accept it as natural." Around them, the defensive energy field continued to hold back the Titan group's forces, but Eli could see them regrouping, bringing in heavier equipment. Whatever protection the meteorite provided, it wasn't absolute. "They're going to try to break through," Dr. Vasquez warned, her instruments detecting increased energy signatures from the corporate weapons. "Let them try," Sarah said, her voice carrying new authority. "The integration has begun. Milo, can you feel the others?" Milo's eyes had taken on a distant quality, as if he were listening to voices only he could hear. "Yuki is scared because her parents don't understand. Ahmed's government wants to use him as a weapon. Maria's family is being threatened." His voice carried pain as he experienced his fellow bridge builders' struggles. "They all need help, Mom." "Then help them," Sarah said simply. "Show them what's possible when families choose love over fear." The memory crystal pulsed brighter, and suddenly Eli could feel it too, a network of consciousness spreading across the globe, connecting 12 children and their families in a web of shared experience and mutual support. Through Milo's connection, he could sense other parents facing the same impossible choices, other families torn between human limitations and cosmic possibilities. "We can help them," Milo said, his voice growing stronger. "All of us together. The collective isn't trying to replace humanity, they're trying to help us become the best version of ourselves." But even as the integration deepened, the corporate forces outside were adapting. Their modified alien weapons had failed, but now they were deploying something different, devices that seemed to create ripples in the energy field itself. "Dimensional disruptors," Sarah said, her expression growing concerned. "Titan Group has been busy. Those weapons can destabilize the quantum entanglement that holds the memory crystals together." "What does that mean?" Eli asked. "It means if they succeed in disrupting the integration process, the consciousness stored in the crystals, including mine, will be scattered across dimensional space. Lost forever." The terrible irony wasn't lost on him. After finding Sarah again, after discovering that death hadn't truly separated them, he might lose her permanently to human greed and fear. "Dad," Milo said, his young face showing wisdom far beyond his years, "I know what we have to do, but I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" Looking at his son, enhanced by alien technology, but still fundamentally, the boy who worried about burning eggs and missed his mother, Eli realized that trust was all he'd ever really had. Trust that love would find a way, that families could survive anything, that sometimes the most courageous thing was to let go and believe in something bigger than fear. "I trust you, buddy. I trust your mom, and I trust that whatever happens, we'll face it together." Milo smiled, and in that smile, Eli could see both his 10-year-old son and the cosmic bridge builder he was becoming. "Then let's show them what a family can do when it's connected to the stars." The memory crystal blazed with brilliant light, and around the world, 11 other children stepped forward to complete their own transformations, their families choosing love over fear, wonder over limitation. The real battle was about to begin. The genetic modifier changed everything Eli thought he understood about his son, his wife, and humanity itself. As the memory crystal reached full activation, Sarah's consciousness expanded beyond her individual preservation, accessing the collective's vast archives of knowledge. What she revealed sent shockwaves through everything they believed about human evolution and the aliens' true purpose. "Eli," Sarah said, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to come from multiple sources simultaneously, "there's something about Milo's genetics that we never told you. Something about human evolution that the collective has been guiding for thousands of years." The holographic displays around them shifted, showing not alien worlds but Earth itself, but an Earth from humanity's distant past. The images revealed early human civilizations, but with subtle differences. Tools that seemed too advanced for their time, architectural achievements that defied conventional understanding of ancient capabilities. "The collective didn't find humanity by accident," Sarah continued. "They've been here before, many times, helping, guiding, occasionally directly intervening when our species faced extinction events." Dr. Vasquez's instruments went wild as the full implications of the genetic modifier became clear. "My God," she breathed, studying the readouts. "The modifications in Milo's DNA, they're not foreign insertions, they're activations of dormant human genetic sequences. Sequences that have been present in our species for millennia. The bridge builders aren't becoming alien," Sarah explained. "They're becoming what humanity was always meant to be." The collective seeded our evolutionary path long ago, knowing that eventually our species would reach a crossroads where we needed to choose between destruction and transformation. Milo's transformation was accelerating now, the genetic modifier working through his system and activating capabilities that had been dormant since birth. His eyes took on a luminous quality, and when he spoke, His voice carried knowledge that spanned civilizations. "The collective isn't dying," he said, correcting their earlier understanding. "They're evolving, moving from pure thought-based existence to something that incorporates physical experience and individual creativity. They need us as much as we need them." "But Sarah's death," Eli began, "was caused by incomplete integration, the genetic modifier revealed through Milo's enhanced awareness. The first generation of bridge builders like Mom had to undergo the transformation as adults when neural pathways were already established. The process was traumatic to existing brain structures. The terrible truth became clear. Sarah hadn't just volunteered to carry genetic modifications, she had served as a test case, allowing her own body to be transformed and ultimately destroyed so that the integration process could be perfected for the children who would follow. "You experimented on my wife," Eli said, anger rising in his voice. "She volunteered," Sarah's consciousness replied gently, "because she understood what was at stake. Climate change, resource depletion, the risk of nuclear war. Humanity is approaching multiple extinction scenarios simultaneously. Without intervention, our species has perhaps 50 years before total collapse." The holographic displays shifted again, showing Earth's probable futures without intervention: rising seas, massive crop failures, wars over dwindling resources, billions of deaths. But then the images changed, showing alternative timelines where enhanced humans worked with collective technology to restore ecological balance and expand beyond Earth. "The bridge builders represent humanity's evolutionary leap," Milo explained, his child's voice carrying ancient wisdom. "Enhanced cognitive abilities, extended lifespans, immunity to most diseases, and the capacity to interface directly with technologies that can heal our world." But even as the revelation unfolded, the corporate assault was intensifying. The Titan Group's dimensional disruptors were beginning to affect the memory crystal's stability, causing Sarah's image to flicker and distort. "They're trying to prevent the evolution," Dr. Vasquez realized. "Titan Group doesn't want enhanced humans. They want to control the technology for themselves." Through Milo's expanded awareness, they could see the full scope of the corporate conspiracy. Titan Group had been tracking the collective signals for decades, acquiring alien artifacts from previous contact attempts, building weapons designed specifically to disrupt the integration process. "But why?" Eli asked. "Why prevent humanity's advancement?" "Because enhanced humans can't be controlled," Milo replied. "We'll be able to detect lies, resist manipulation, see through the systems of exploitation that keep people trapped in poverty and ignorance. Corporations like Titan Group profit from human limitation. Our evolution threatens their power." The dimensional disruptors reached critical intensity, and cracks began appearing in the protective energy field around their property. Through the failing barrier, Eli could see corporate soldiers advancing with weapons that seemed to bend light around them. "The integration must be completed now," Sarah urged, her form becoming increasingly unstable. "All 12 sites simultaneously, or the process will fail." Around the world, the other bridge builders were facing similar corporate assaults. Through the network connection, Eli could feel their fear, their families' desperation, their government's confusion as they tried to understand technologies beyond current human comprehension. "There's something else," Milo said, his enhanced perception revealing a hidden truth. "Dr. Vasquez, you're not just a government scientist, are you?" Dr. Vasquez looked startled, then resigned. "I've been in contact with the collective for 3 years. Your wife and I were part of a secret international group preparing for this moment. Scientists, military leaders, government officials who understood that first contact was inevitable and that humanity needed guides. You're enhanced too," Eli realized. "First-generation integration. Like Sarah. My cancer is in remission, but the process will eventually kill me unless the second-generation bridge builders can complete the network." She looked at Milo with desperate hope. "You and the other children represent not just humanity's future, but the survival of everyone who has been helping prepare for this moment." The weight of responsibility settled on Eli's shoulders like a physical thing. His son wasn't just becoming something extraordinary. He was the key to saving not just the human species, but the brave individuals who had sacrificed everything to make this moment possible. "What do you need from me?" Eli asked. "Trust," Sarah said, her image flickering as the dimensional disruptors continued their assault. The final phase of integration requires Milo to merge completely with the memory crystal. For a brief time, he'll exist more as energy than matter. The process is safe, but it will look like death. How long? 3 minutes. But during those 3 minutes, every corporate and government force on the planet will try to prevent the transformation. They'll assume he's dying and attempt medical intervention, which would disrupt the process permanently. Through the failing energy barrier, Eli could see medical teams accompanying the corporate soldiers' teams, equipped with resuscitation equipment and life support systems that would indeed interfere with the integration process. "I have to protect him during the transformation," Eli realized. "We all do," Marcus said, appearing at the crater's edge with a determined expression. "Every parent, every family member, every friend who believes in the future these children represent." Around the world, the network showed him families making the same choice, mothers and fathers, siblings and grandparents, standing guard while their children underwent transformations that would save humanity or die trying. "Are you ready, my brave boy?" Sarah asked, reaching toward Milo with hands made of starlight. Milo looked at his father one last time. "When I come back, I'll still be me, but I'll also be something more. Something that can help fix the world Mom loved so much." "Then let's fix it together," Eli said, taking his position between his transforming son and the forces that would stop him. The genetic modifier pulsed one final time, and Milo stepped forward to embrace his cosmic destiny. The resonance chamber that formed around Milo as he entered the final phase of integration was unlike anything human science had ever documented. The air itself seemed to crystallize, creating geometric patterns that extended far beyond their backyard and connected with similar formations appearing at the 11 other sites worldwide. Through this resonance chamber, Eli could suddenly feel everything, not just Milo's transformation, but the experiences of every other bridge builder and their families across the globe. The shared consciousness was overwhelming at first, a cacophony of emotions and sensations from 12 different cultures and languages. But gradually, patterns emerged. Fear from the parents in Tokyo as their government threatened to intervene. Determination from the family in Sao Paulo as they stood against corporate forces. Wonder from the child in Cairo as ancient knowledge flowed through newly awakened neural pathways. And underneath it all, a growing harmony as 12 young minds began to think and feel as one while maintaining their individual personalities. "It's working, Doctor," Vasquez said, her instruments showing unprecedented energy patterns. "The global network is stabilizing, but the dimensional disruptors are having an effect. The resonance is weaker than projected." Marcus had positioned himself at the crater's edge with a baseball bat, as if he could somehow beat back advanced corporate weapons with pure determination. "How long does Milo need to complete the process?" 17 minutes for full integration. Sarah's flickering image replied, but the critical phase when his consciousness merges with the crystal lasts only 3 minutes. During that time, any disruption will be fatal. Through the failing energy barrier, Eli could see the Titan Group forces regrouping for a final assault. Their dimensional disruptors had created weak points in the protective field, and they were preparing to exploit those vulnerabilities with surgical precision. "There's something else," Dr. Vasquez said, studying her readouts with growing alarm. "The resonance chamber is affecting more than just the bridge builders. It's awakening dormant genetic sequences in everyone within the field radius." Eli felt it then, a tingling sensation in his mind, as if doors he'd never known existed were beginning to open. Around the neighborhood, he could see other residents emerging from their homes with expressions of wonder and confusion. Mrs. Peterson next door was staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. The Martinez family across the street stood together in their yard, all of them gazing up at the sky with matching expressions of recognition. "The enhancement isn't limited to the bridge builders," Marcus said, his voice carrying new harmonics. "It's spreading to everyone." "The collective's final gift," Sarah explained. "They're not just creating 12 enhanced humans, they're triggering the next stage of human evolution for everyone ready to accept it." But this broader transformation was also making them a bigger target. Through the resonance chamber's expanded awareness, Eli could sense military forces converging on their location from multiple directions. Not just corporate mercenaries, but government black ops teams, international intelligence agencies, and shadowy organizations he couldn't identify. "They're not trying to capture Milo anymore," he realized. "They're trying to prevent the enhancement from spreading." "Exactly," Dr. Vasquez confirmed. "If the transformation completes successfully, it will render traditional power structures obsolete. Enhanced humans can't be controlled through fear, manipulation, or ignorance. Every authoritarian regime, every exploitative corporation, every system based on keeping people powerless, they all become impossible to maintain." The stakes weren't just about first contact anymore. They were about the fundamental future of human civilization. As if responding to this realization, the corporate assault intensified dramatically. The dimensional disruptors reached maximum power, creating visible tears in space around the energy barrier. Through these tears, Eli caught glimpses of other realities, worlds where the integration had failed, where humanity had chosen fear over evolution, where Earth had become a barren wasteland. "They're destabilizing local space-time," Sarah warned, her image becoming increasingly fragmented. "If they succeed in creating a large enough dimensional rift, it will sever the connection between the memory crystals permanently." Milo's transformation was reaching its critical phase. His physical form was becoming translucent as his consciousness prepared to merge with the crystal matrix. But instead of looking afraid, he appeared serene, connected to something vast and wonderful that existed beyond the immediate danger. "Dad," he said, his voice seeming to come from everywhere at once, "I need you to do something for me." "Anything, buddy. I need you to forgive them." "Forgive who?" "The people trying to stop us. They're afraid. They don't understand what we're offering. But hatred and anger will interfere with the resonance field. For the integration to work, it needs to be powered by love, not conflict." The request seemed impossible given the circumstances. Corporate soldiers were preparing to assault their home, to harm or kill his child, to prevent humanity's evolution out of pure greed. How could he forgive that? But as Milo's consciousness expanded through the resonance chamber, Eli began to understand. Through the enhanced awareness, he could feel the attackers' motivations, fear of the unknown, desperate attempts to maintain control in a changing world, genuine belief that they were protecting humanity from alien contamination. They weren't evil, they were terrified. "I can't do this alone," Eli admitted. "You won't be alone," Marcus said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We're all connected now, all of us who choose love over fear." Around the world, similar scenes were unfolding. Parents and families standing together, choosing trust over terror, creating a global network of consciousness powered by humanity's capacity for love and sacrifice. Through the resonance chamber, Eli could feel that collective choice, millions of people worldwide, sensing the transformation and deciding to embrace rather than resist it. But the corporate forces weren't backing down. Their dimensional disruptors had created multiple rifts in the protective barrier, and specialized assault teams were preparing to breach the compound. Eli could see them through the tiers in space-time soldiers, enhanced with alien technology, stolen from previous contact attempts, wearing armor that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. "They're using collective technology against us," Dr. Vasquez realized. "Modified artifacts from earlier integration attempts that failed." "How many times has this happened before?" Eli asked. "The collective has tried to guide species evolution dozens of times across the galaxy," Sarah replied. "Most attempts fail because the enhanced individuals are eliminated before the network can establish itself. Only a few species have successfully made the transition. The weight of cosmic history pressed down on them. This wasn't just about Earth, it was about proving that conscious evolution was possible, that species could choose cooperation over destruction when faced with the ultimate test. 2 minutes to critical phase, Dr. Vasquez announced. Milo's physical form was now barely visible, his consciousness existing more as energy than matter. The memory crystal had expanded to encompass the entire crater, its faceted surfaces reflecting not just light, but somehow reflecting possibilities, showing glimpses of the future humanity could achieve if the integration succeeded. Through those reflections, Eli could see potential tomorrows. Cities that floated on clouds, powered by technologies that worked in harmony with natural systems. Humans exploring the galaxy not as conquerors, but as ambassadors, carrying the gift of individual creativity to species that had forgotten how to dream. Children like Milo, growing up in a world where war and poverty were historical curiosities, where every person could reach their full potential. But he could also see the alternative futures, the worlds where fear had won, where humanity had chosen limitation over transcendence, where Earth had become just another failed experiment in conscious evolution. The breach is imminent, Marcus warned, watching the assault teams position themselves at the weakest points in the barrier. Then it's time, Sarah said, her image stabilizing one final time as she prepared to guide her son through the ultimate transformation. Milo, my brave boy, are you ready to show the universe what humans can become? Milo's voice came from the heart of the crystal matrix, carrying love and determination that spanned galaxies. I'm ready, Mum. Let's build the bridge between worlds. The critical phase began, and with it, the final battle for humanity's future. The neural bridge that formed between Milo and the memory crystal was a thing of impossible beauty, streams of conscious energy flowing between his dispersed awareness and the alien intelligence that had traveled across the galaxy to find him. As the bridge stabilized, the corporate assault reached its climax. The modified weapons tore through the weakened energy barrier like tissue paper, and enhanced soldiers poured into the compound from multiple directions. Their alien tech armor allowed them to move through the dimensional rifts as if they were doorways, appearing and disappearing in ways that defied conventional physics. "Protect the integration!" Dr. Vasquez shouted, placing herself between the approaching soldiers and the crater where Milo's transformation was reaching its critical moment. Marcus swung his baseball bat at the first soldier to reach them, only to have it pass harmlessly through armor that existed partially outside normal space. The soldier's return blow sent Marcus flying backward, but instead of despair, his face showed determination. "The neural bridge," he called to Eli. "They can't disrupt it if we maintain the resonance field." Eli understood. The integration process didn't depend on physical protection. It depended on consciousness, on the collective will of everyone connected to the bridge builders worldwide. As long as the families maintained their emotional connection to the transformation, no weapon could truly stop it. Around the world, similar battles were raging, but through the neural bridge, Eli could feel the tide turning. In Tokyo, Yuki's grandmother had organized the entire neighborhood to protect her granddaughter's transformation, creating a human shield powered by love rather than weapons. In Cairo, Ahmed's parents had convinced local religious leaders that the integration was a divine gift, turning potential opposition into protection. The neural bridge pulsed with increasing power as Milo's consciousness expanded beyond individual human limitations. Through the connection, Eli could experience what his son was experiencing, the vast loneliness of the collective consciousness, eons of pure thought without the chaos and creativity of individual emotion. But he could also feel Milo's gifts flowing in the other direction, human wonder, the capacity for surprise, the beautiful unpredictability of mortal creativity, enriching a civilization that had forgotten how to laugh. How to dream, how to love. "It's working," he whispered in amazement. They're not trying to change us, we're changing them. The first phase of global consciousness expansion began as the neural bridge reached full stability. Enhanced humans worldwide started awakening to abilities they'd never known. They possessed not alien powers, but human potential that had been locked away for millennia. The corporate soldiers faltered as their weapons began failing against targets whose consciousness could exist partially outside normal reality. Their alien tech armor, designed to counter known collective technologies, couldn't adapt to the hybrid human-alien consciousness that was emerging from the integration. Through the neural bridge, Milo demonstrated his new expanded awareness. He could feel the soldiers' fear, their confusion, their desperate attempts to complete a mission they no longer understood. And instead of fighting them, he began to reach out to their consciousness, offering them the same choice he'd been given. "They can choose too," he said, his voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Everyone can choose evolution over fear." One by one, the enhanced soldiers began lowering their weapons, their faces showing the same wonder and recognition that had spread through the neighborhood. The neural bridge wasn't just connecting the bridge builders, it was offering transformation to anyone willing to accept it. But the dimensional disruptors reached maximum power, creating massive tears in local space-time. Through these rifts, Eli could see Titan Group's ultimate weapon, a device that existed outside normal reality, designed to sever the quantum entanglement that connected consciousness to consciousness across galactic distances. "They're going to try to cut the connection permanently," Dr. Vasquez warned, her instruments detecting energy signatures that threatened the very fabric of space-time. "If they succeed, every consciousness currently in the bridge state will be scattered across dimensional space." The neural bridge began to destabilize as the weapon powered up. Milo's consciousness, stretched between human individuality and cosmic awareness, started to fragment under the dimensional stress. "Dad." His voice came faintly through the bridge. "I can't hold it much longer. The connection is breaking apart." Eli stepped forward, placing his hands on the crystal matrix where his son's physical form had been. The moment he made contact, he felt the neural bridge's strain, the enormous effort required to maintain consciousness across multiple dimensional states while under assault from weapons designed specifically to disrupt such connections. "Then don't hold it alone," he said, opening his mind to the bridge. "We'll hold it together." Around the world, the message spread through the global network. Parents, siblings, friends, and loved ones connected to the bridge builders began adding their consciousness to the neural bridge, creating a web of human awareness that spanned the planet. The irreversible bonding process accelerated, powered not by alien technology, but by the most human force of all, the refusal to let go of those we love. The transformation beacon that emerged from the memory crystal's final metamorphosis was not a device, but a living network, 12 points of light connected by streams of consciousness that spanned continents and united human creativity with cosmic wisdom. As Milo completed his evolution into humanity's first cosmic ambassador, the beacon began broadcasting on frequencies that existed beyond normal electromagnetic spectrum. Every enhanced human on Earth could feel the signal, a call to awakening, that resonated in genetic codes activated after millennia of dormancy. The simultaneous activation of all 12 global sites created a cascade effect that overwhelmed Titan Group's dimensional weapons. Their disruptors, designed to disrupt single-point consciousness transfers, couldn't cope with a planet-wide network of interconnected awareness. "The quantum entanglement is stabilizing globally," Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice filled with wonder as her instruments detected changes that redefined physics itself. "The beacon isn't just connecting the bridge builders, it's creating a permanent communication link between Earth and the collective's home systems." Around them, the corporate assault collapsed as enhanced soldiers chose evolution over conflict. The neural feedback from the beacon had shown them glimpses of what they were fighting against, not alien invasion, but conscious evolution. the next step in their own species' development. Eli watched in amazement as Milo's new form stabilized within the beacon's crystalline matrix. His son was still recognizably human, but enhanced in ways that seemed both alien and completely natural. His eyes held depths that reflected cosmic distances, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate with the music of the spheres. "Dad," Milo said, stepping out of the beacon's core, "can you feel it? The awakening?" Eli could feel it, a spreading wave of consciousness that was touching every human mind, ready to receive it. Enhanced cognitive abilities were manifesting worldwide, but more importantly, enhanced empathy was growing. The capacity for violence and exploitation was diminishing as people gained the ability to feel others' experiences as their own. The psychic feedback is neutralizing all aggressive actions worldwide, Dr. Vasquez observed, monitoring global communications. Military conflicts are ceasing. Corporate exploitation is becoming impossible as enhanced workers can detect and resist manipulation. The transformation beacon pulsed with increasing strength, and through its network, Eli could sense the other bridge builders completing their own metamorphoses. 12 children around the world were becoming something new, human ambassadors to a cosmic civilization that had been waiting eons for species capable of joining their community. But the beacon was doing more than just facilitating first contact. It was beginning humanity's gradual evolution into something that could survive and thrive among the stars. "The genetic modifications are spreading," Milo explained, his enhanced awareness allowing him to monitor the global process. Not through infection or force, but through choice. Every person who chooses love over fear, cooperation over conflict, becomes a candidate for enhancement. Through the beacon's network, Eli could see the changes spreading across Earth. Enhanced humans were sharing their expanded awareness with families and communities, creating ripples of consciousness expansion that touched every continent. But the transformation was voluntary. Those who chose to remain baseline human were respected and protected, their individual choice honored. The collective never intended to replace humanity. Sarah's consciousness said, her form now permanently integrated with the beacon's systems. They intended to offer us a choice, remain as we are, or become what we could be. The dimensional weapons finally shut down completely, their operators enhanced beyond the capacity for destructive action. Titan Group's command structure collapsed as board members and executives found themselves unable to prioritize profit over human welfare. Their enhanced empathy, making exploitation literally impossible. Around the world, similar transformations were occurring in every power structure built on domination and control. Enhanced humans couldn't be governed by fear or manipulated by false information. The old systems of control were becoming obsolete, not through force, but through transcendence. What happens now? Marcus asked, his own enhancement manifesting as an expanded sense of justice and community connection. Now we learn, Milo replied, his awareness encompassing not just Earth, but the growing network of consciousness that connected them to civilizations across the galaxy. The collective has technologies that can heal environmental damage, methods for traveling between stars without harming local ecosystems, knowledge that can help us become the best version of ourselves. The beacon established permanent contact with the cosmic civilization, creating a communication channel that would allow cultural and technological exchange over generations. But more importantly, it had preserved human individuality and creativity while expanding human consciousness. The first phase is complete, the beacon announced in Milo's voice, though Eli could hear harmonics from all 12 bridge builders. Humanity has chosen evolution. The partnership begins now. Enhanced humans worldwide began awakening to their new abilities, but the transformation had preserved human nature while expanding human potential. Children still laughed and played, families still gathered for meals. Love and loss Joy and sorrow remained fundamentally human experiences, but now enhanced by cosmic perspective and unlimited potential. The bridge between worlds was complete, and humanity's journey among the stars could finally begin. 6 months after the transformation, the Harper family's morning routine had changed in ways both profound and wonderfully ordinary. Eli still made breakfast, though he no longer burned the eggs. His enhanced spatial awareness made such accidents impossible. Milo still sat at their wooden table, though now he occasionally paused his eating to answer questions from enhanced children on other continents, their consciousness linked through the beacon network that had become as natural as breathing. The legacy archive that had formed from Sarah's complete integration with the beacon allowed conversations that Eli had thought impossible. She wasn't truly alive in the way she had been before her physical form remained part of the cosmic consciousness, but her memories, her personality, her love for her family had been preserved perfectly within the crystalline library that now occupied their transformed backyard. "Good morning, beautiful," Eli said to the shimmering presence that materialized beside their breakfast table as he had every morning for the past 6 months. "Good morning, my love," Sarah replied, her form more stable now than during the chaotic first days of integration. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years," Eli admitted. It was true. The enhanced empathy that had come with his own gradual transformation had healed wounds he hadn't even known existed. The constant anxiety about money, about Milo's future, about facing life alone, all of it had dissolved as his awareness expanded to encompass possibilities he'd never imagined. Their neighborhood had become a research and communication center, but not in the sterile, corporate way Eli had once feared. Instead, it felt like the world's most extraordinary community center. Enhanced humans from around the globe came to study at the Legacy Archive, but they also came to play with Milo, to share meals with the Harper family, to experience the warmth of human connection that the collective had been missing for eons. Mrs. Peterson next door had discovered that her enhancement included an intuitive understanding of plant genetics, and her backyard had become a garden that produced vegetables year-round regardless of weather. The Martinez family had found their empathic abilities allowed them to communicate with animals in ways that seemed magical, and their home had become an informal sanctuary for injured wildlife. "The Singapore bridge builders are visiting next week," Milo announced between bites of perfectly cooked eggs. "May wants to show me how she's been working with the dolphins there. They're learning to help clean plastic from the ocean." Eli smiled. This was how the world was changing, not through grand technological impositions, but through enhanced humans finding creative solutions to old problems, working with nature rather than against it. "And Ahmed is coordinating the Desert Restoration Project in Morocco," Sarah added, her consciousness connected to the global network in ways that allowed her to monitor humanity's progress in real time. The enhanced weather prediction capabilities are allowing them to guide rainfall patterns without disrupting global climate systems. The transformation had proceeded exactly as the collective had promised. Enhanced humans maintained their individual personalities and human nature while gaining access to technologies and knowledge that were healing their world. But perhaps more importantly, they had gained the empathy necessary to use that knowledge wisely. Dr. Vasquez stopped by most mornings now, no longer as a government scientist, but as a friend and fellow enhanced human. Her cancer had gone into permanent remission as the integration process repaired cellular damage at the genetic level, and she spent her time documenting the changes occurring worldwide. "The atmospheric carbon levels dropped another 2% this month," she reported, settling into a chair that seemed to adjust itself to her comfort, a bit of collective technology that had been integrated into their home. "The enhanced humans working on environmental restoration are exceeding every projection." "What about resistance?" Marcus asked, joining them from next door where he'd been helping Mrs. Peterson with her impossible garden. "Are there still people opposing the transformation?" "Less every month," Dr. Vasquez replied. It's hard to maintain fear-based opposition when enhanced humans are so obviously working for everyone's benefit, and the voluntary nature of the process has eliminated most concerns about forced conversion. Indeed, the transformation had spread organically through human choice rather than alien mandate. Enhanced humans shared their expanded awareness with families and communities, but only those who genuinely chose evolution received the full integration. Others remained baseline human, protected and valued members of society whose different perspective was recognized as essential to maintaining human diversity. Besides, Milo added with the wisdom that still sometimes surprised Eli, people aren't afraid of us because we're still us. We just have more room in our hearts and minds for wonder. As the morning progressed, other enhanced children began arriving for their daily coordination session. They came through various means, some walking from nearby neighborhoods, others materializing through the quantum transportation network that had developed as the beacon systems matured. But they all came with the same excitement for discovery and connection that had characterized human childhood for millennia. Watching them gather in the backyard around the legacy archive, Eli was struck by how normal it all seemed now. Children from different continents playing together while accessing cosmic knowledge, sharing insights about galactic civilizations between games of tag, solving complex environmental problems with the same enthusiasm they brought to puzzles and riddles. "It's what Sarah always dreamed of," he murmured, watching Milo explain something about quantum mechanics to a younger, enhanced child from Australia. "What I dreamed of, and what the collective needed," Sarah's voice replied warmly. "Human creativity and wonder, preserved and enhanced rather than replaced. Individual consciousness, maintaining its beautiful chaos while gaining access to collective wisdom." As afternoon approached, the visiting children began departing for their own homes and families around the world. But the connections remained the beacon network, ensuring that no enhanced human was ever truly alone, that the bridge builders could continue their work of healing Earth and exploring the cosmos together. Eli found himself standing in the garden that had once been a simple backyard, holding hands with his son while Sarah's presence surrounded them like starlight. The meteorite that had started everything was gone, transformed into the beacon that now served as Earth's communication center with a galactic community of conscious species. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked Milo, as they watched the sunset paint the sky in colors that enhanced vision could perceive in far greater depth and beauty than before. "Regret becoming who I was always meant to be?" Milo considered the question with the thoroughness that characterized enhanced cognition. "No, Dad. I regret that it took so long. I regret that Mom couldn't be here in physical form to see what we've built, but I don't regret choosing love over fear." The beacon pulsed gently in the growing dusk, its light visible now not just to enhanced humans, but to anyone who chose to really look. Around the world, similar beacons created a network of light that was beginning to be visible from space. Humanity's announcement to the cosmos that Earth was ready to join the community of conscious worlds. "What's next?" Eli asked, though he suspected the answer would be as wonderful as it was impossible to predict. "Everything," Milo replied, his young voice carrying the harmony of infinite possibility. "We've only just begun to explore what's possible when love meets knowledge, when human creativity partners with cosmic wisdom. The universe is vast, Dad, and we're finally ready to explore it together." As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, each one now a potential destination rather than an impossible dream, the Harper family stood together in their transformed world. The future stretched before them like an invitation written in starlight, promising adventures that would span galaxies while always bringing them home to the love that had made it all possible. The bridge between worlds was complete, but the journey had only just begun.